So I think that we should get started. My name, as I say, is Gary Meyer, and longtime supporter of the Nile Silent Movie Museum, and have been in the movie theater business since I was 12 when I opened a theater in my parents' barn. So I'm thrilled with the group of people that have joined us here this morning. And I would like to just start with Adam and have you tell us a little bit about who you are, what got you excited about being in the movie business, maybe a story from a first early experience that turned you on, and a little bit about what you are doing now.
My name's Adam Bergeron, and I have a little company called CinemaSF in San Francisco. Currently, we have two theaters, the Balboa Theater and the Vogue Theater that we operate. Little old, beautiful neighborhood theaters that we love. And the Balboa Theater we actually got from Gary Meyer, and it's a particularly charming little theater. And so how did I get started in this business? I'll tell you, here's a good story. When I was 8 years old, my family drove across the country. We were moving from Connecticut to North Carolina, and we stopped in San Francisco, and it was 1977, and we kept on hearing about this movie called Star Wars, and we hadn't seen it. And all across the country at all the KOAs that we stopped at, it was all a buzz. And we finally got to San Francisco somehow, and I'll never know how my parents knew to go to the Coronet Theater, which was the movie theater that the premiere was in, and it had lines around the block for months and months. I think it opened in May. This was probably July or August. And we sat in a sold out theater 3 months after the movie opened, so sold out that my parents and my brother and I couldn't even sit together. And my brother was in kind of a broken seat. He was kind of crooked in his seat. And when the crawl started, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, we were just transported. My brother was so young, I had to read it to him as it went by. And it was that, I would say that was the beginning of the love of movies there, and continued to this day.
There is a photograph of that opening day at the Coronet on that website, on the Eat Drink Films website, with an article about it. And I take the joy of having booked it into that theater because nobody wanted to play Star Wars. The industry wisdom was that it was going to be a bomb. Okay, Emelyn, you're next. And unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emelyn Stuart. I am the owner of Stuart Cinema and Cafe. It's a small independent movie theater located in Brooklyn, New York. And so I got into the business not so much because I grew up watching movies, but because I was executive producing projects for the last 10 years. And I couldn't get any theatrical distribution. For whatever reason, the decision makers didn't feel that my film had an audience. And I felt differently about that. And I had been investing in all of these films. And with the last no that I got, I said, you know what, I'm just going to build my own movie theater so that I can control the narrative and I can show things that I believe people want to watch. And that's how I ended up building. And that's why I built Stuart Cinema and Cafe. I also own the October Film Festival, which is 9 years old this year. And I needed a home for the festival. And we were moving from place to place every year, and it was expensive. A lot of our sponsorship money was going to pay for venues that really didn't care about independent filmmakers. And so that was another driving force for building and owning my own movie theater.
Great. Is there a seminal moment in your movie going experience?
So I have to say, I grew up watching Telemundo and the Picapiedras, which was like Fred Flintstone in Spanish. And so, I think movie going experience as a child, not speaking English, was different than it is for some of the other kids. And so we kind of just, sat around the TV and we watched mostly novelas growing up. And those are like Spanish soap operas. And so the story format was really, really long, because these novelas would go on for years. And so I always had a love for storytelling and that's how I got into producing. But it definitely was just sitting around, you know, our small apartment in Brooklyn, watching novelas on Telemundo when I was a kid.
Great. Lex Sloan from the Roxy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lex Sloan. I'm the executive director of the historic Roxy Theater in San Francisco. So happy to be joining you all today. And Emelyn, I checked out your cafe's menu and it looks delicious. So I want to come for a visit. Yeah, I would say kind of my seminal moment was I'm actually a filmmaker as well, and saw one of the first movies I made on a big screen at a film festival, and was hooked and just realized that this would be kind of the course of my life. I never knew I would be, you know, the executive director of the Roxy and working on exhibition and kind of the behind the scenes, behind the screen, I like to say. But I still make movies, and one of my favorite things about the job is being able to provide access and space for local filmmakers to get their stories told.
Is that moment that excited you about the movies?
Just seeing my work on the big screen, it's nothing like it, you know?
Great. Suki, tell us about you.
Okay, unmuted. Hi, I'm Suki. I'm based out of Oakland. I am one of the managers at the Elmwood Theater in Berkeley, California. It's Berkeley's only independently owned movie theater. And I have worked at a bunch of film festivals for years and years, doing everything from ticketing to house managing and all the other behind the scenes kind of stuff. I don't know, I've always loved film. My dad used to hide Mary Poppins because I would watch it on repeat and it would drive him nuts. So I don't know, seminal moment. I'd say the first movie experience I remember having was my parents took me to go see As Good as It Gets, and they didn't realize it was rated R because of the language, obviously, and obviously some of the other issues that are happening in that movie. And I remember being like, oh, okay, there's forbidden stuff in movies, so it must be cool. I'd say that's probably the first movie experience I have. My parents being freaked out. Yeah, I don't know, I just love movies.
So I think that we're gonna kind of go into a general discussion now, and so all the panelists should unmute themselves so they can jump in. The first question really to be asked is, what did you do when the theaters had to close down to keep a relationship with your audiences? Just sort of raise your hand and then we'll see and then talk. Or go ahead, Adam, do you have something to say?
Sure, I'll start. Well, and it's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to keep it shorter, but you know, we at first there was, I mean, it was a fairly desperate time, and so at first we just wanted to keep the staff taken care of and keep everything rolling, and so we started making T-shirts and tote bags for both theaters and selling them online, and that really caught on really quickly because our neighborhoods are really supportive of us. And so there was a lot of shipping of packages for the first couple of months. Then we opened just selling popcorn and beer curbside. And because the city of San Francisco allowed us to have a to-go beer license, as you know, with our on-premise license. And then that was really popular too. And I mean, we love our popcorn. And so again, the neighborhood really supported us there. And so that became pretty popular. And then as time went on, we built a parklet out in front. This is sort of the many phases of, you know, there's like the Tiger King phase of, and then we move forward, right? And so, you know, like phase 3, we built a parklet and we got a big TV that the San Francisco Giants actually gave us. And it's big, like 80-inch big TV. We built a case around it and we started showing movies in the parklet and the same beer and popcorn and families. And so honestly, we got to know, me personally too, because I was pretty out front at that time. I got to know the people of our neighborhood 100 times more than I knew them in times. You know, I mean, we were all sort of in a desperate time together. We were all sort of doing this thing together. your neighborhood was everything at the time. And it really, I think that our little business came out of this pandemic, honestly, better off than we went into it in such a crazy way. But, and everything was just sort of taking the next available step and going, okay, let's do that too, it went, as far as pandemics go, I guess could have been worse,
Emelyn?
So we were already sort of serving our community to begin with. And so when they said we had to close down, and we closed down early, like March 16th, the mayor mandated that we needed to close, and the governor. So we immediately got DVDs donated. And so we wanted to keep people connected to movies. So we did an honor system, and people would come in, get DVDs, watch them, bring them back. We also used our theater for people to apply for unemployment. We provided them with laptops so they would come in and work. We helped them with applications, different things like that. And we have a standalone cafe that's attached to the theater. So we were considered essential. So we were able to stay open. And then in the evenings, we would give away food, and people would line up outside. And then we used the theater for memorial services for people who had passed away. So we had bookings weekly. And people would come once we became CinemaSF certified, and we redid our air system and all this other stuff that was required. Then we just had memorial services constantly. So 20 people would come in the theater, and they would watch people being buried in different places and be able to mourn together. So we stayed open the entire time, just serving the community. And because of that, we came out better, with better relationships, really understanding our customers, really knowing who they are. We would give the kids free popcorn every afternoon. Parents would take them for a walk just to get them out of the house. And this was their stop to pick up popcorn on their way home. And we got some grants from different programs that were supporting us because we were supporting this community. So yeah, in a lot of ways, we also are better for the experience.
Lex?
Wow, that's hard to follow. That's
good job. That's amazing.
We were desperate. And we just wanted to help. Because we felt so helpless. We were like, what can we do?
That's
wow.
amazing. I applaud you. That's great.
Yeah, that's so moving. So it's funny, Adam with Balboa and the Vogue, they're across town from the Roxy in San Francisco. We have a little rivalry over who has the best popcorn, but that's okay. We were able to team up, and we did some pop-up drive-ins that were really great. One of the things that I think for me came out of this whole thing was also building relationships with other cinemas, strengthening our relationships, finding ways to collaborate together, and to see our audiences as the same audiences that we provide different things for. And much like kind of many cinemas, 2 weeks after we closed the Roxy, which was Friday, March 13th, I'll never forget, but we opened our Roxy virtual cinema. And that was a great way to stay engaged with our community. At the Roxy, we always say, we're more than just movies. So it was so important for us to not just be screening movies virtually, but also continuing to make sure we're having post-screening discussions, Q&As through Zoom. We launched a virtual membership program, which was wonderful. We got members from all over the country and actually around the world. We have a member in Kathmandu. And part of that membership program, we did a series of artists in conversation. So monthly, we were able to talk to Bay Area filmmakers from all sorts of genres, from Boots Riley to Cheryl Denier. And those conversations were intimate and inspiring, and definitely, like you said, Adam, we got to know our audience even better, and know them more. And now that we're reopened, it's so lovely to be able to call them by name and welcome them back to our lobby. So it's been a challenging 16 months, and it will continue to be challenging for sure. But it feels good to know we all, I think, are a little better for it.
Yeah.
Suki, you were kind of didn't have official work at that point, right?
Yeah, I was managing the theater the last day we were open, and we got word, and I was like, oh crap. So just kind of closing everything up. We pretty much were closed. We had the virtual cinema that was going pretty good. And when did we start? I think October we started doing the popcorn drive up on Sundays. And that was popular because we always had, we're in like a little neighborhood in Berkeley, and we always had people come up even when we were open normal just to buy popcorn. They love our popcorn. We use real oil, real butter. They like our stuff, so that went really well. And then just like, selling posters and stuff online. But yeah, now we're fully back open. So I don't know, sorry, I don't know what to say about that because we didn't do as much as you guys. You guys really went all out, and we were just kind of like.
What I find really exciting is that while the circuits, the commercial circuits, basically closed down, and not to say that they weren't helping their staff and that they were going in there and doing a lot of physical work that they had to do, they just dropped their communication with their audiences, even though most of them had mailing lists, and I was shocked by that.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what all the independents were doing were the things you're talking about. This virtual cinema, which was an excuse to be sending something out to your people every single week, and then coming up with all these unique ways of engaging with your community, because you're all really neighborhood theaters. Neighborhood theaters are the core of this film business ever since the beginning of the movies. There were theaters in practically every single neighborhood. So you're survivors and you're doing the right thing. So I think that's fantastic. Now everybody is relaunching. Everybody's back open with caution, I suppose. And you're doing a mixture of your regular programming and some special events. Is there anything that any of you want to really talk about that very special that you're particularly proud of in terms of your launch? Certainly I know about Adam's Godzilla Festival, which was great. Godzilla came in person, I understand.
Yes, he did. Yeah, or she did. Yeah, they came.
Godzilla is a she, isn't? Yeah, Godzilla's a she.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not. But honestly, I'm not even sure.
Son of Godzilla. Pretty sure.
The son of Godzilla. That's I hadn't thought about it. One thing I'll say is, since we've reopened, we reopened with the Godzilla Fest. We had a chalkboard. We had boarded up the theater, the front of it, and I tried so hard to not, but there were a few break-ins. It just felt like the whole front of our theater is old glass doors, and it just felt like we needed to do it. We still had access in and out, but it was boarded. And one of the things, we painted a mural on it, and one of the things that was on it was a chalkboard that said, what movies would you like us to show when we reopen? And then every few days we would erase it, but we would take a picture beforehand, and we kept kind of a chart of, and you realize after a while that it's the same people writing it over and over again. And so you think, oh, everyone wants to see Repo Man, but really it's just
love that.
everyone wants to see Repo Man, And so, but Godzilla Fest, which we do kind of annually anyway, was up there a lot. And so at some point in the pandemic, we realized, oh, that's a good, fun way, very inclusive to everybody, young and old. We'll open with Godzilla Fest. And it was great. At the time, we were at 50% capacity, but we sold out of most of it at 50% capacity. And it really was a great welcome back to everybody. But one of the things we've noticed since we've reopened, because we do kind of a hybrid mix of first run films and a lot of special events, but kind of like 50-50. And the special events, people really are interested in special events now and not as much in the first run movies. And a number of those first run movies are now available streaming. It's impossible to know who's doing which thing really. You can't talk to everybody. But it's funny how, normally Black Widow, the Marvel blockbuster, would do really well for us.
Yeah.
And it's not, this time it was pretty lackluster, whereas our super oddball, quirky, special event screenings have been selling out. So, I think a lot of people everybody I know took kind of a long, hard look at what you want to do with your time, and when you go out, who you want to see and where you want to be, and all that. And I think maybe everyone's a little choosier now and looking for something a little more special than we did before. And maybe it'll come back around. I don't know. It's still a little early in that, but that's one thing that we've noticed.
Are the studios aware of the special events, and are they making it, any kind of an issue out of that?
Well, there's
You don't have to answer that.
I mean, they don't love it when you do those. Nobody wants their movie to be preempted, but you can, if you time everything just right, you can do it. Especially our late night features. Right. We're doing midnight screenings.
Yeah, well, that they can.
Yeah, or early mornings. There's a bunch of
this hilarious thing where 20th Century Fox used to say, you cannot show anything on your screen when you're playing our first run movie, no matter what time of the day it is. And we would come back to them and say, but what about Rocky Horror Picture Show, which you're making millions of dollars of for us doing midnights? Oh, well, okay, maybe we have to rethink this. It was their film.
Right.
So that I love you started talking about the programming and this mix and the challenges. And so Lex and Emelyn, particularly, you were involved in making decisions about what you show and how you find that balance. So the Roxy is exclusively specialized, challenging, oddball films. The Stuart is commercial films with special events being mixed in. So if you have any thoughts about the programming going forward, I think we're all interested in that. Either one, speak up.
So going into the pandemic, we were only showing like second run films because we had so many other events, and we did not have a DCP projector. Since the pandemic, we invested in a DCP projector, redid the theater, new carpeting, everything, because I wanted to offer new releases to our customers at a reasonable rate with great food and all this other stuff. And I honestly can say that I have been disappointed in that investment because the new releases aren't doing as well as I expected. And I mean, I was betting on it being great, right? And I thought, well, people who always go to the movies are going to still go to the movies, right? But now that people can watch that stuff on HBO Max and Disney Plus, and, especially in a community where, there's a single parent with 4 kids and it costs $100 and something to go to the movies, when they can just watch it at home on their big screen TV that they were able to buy with their stimulus, it's a very difficult situation that we're in. And the studios are being difficult about not getting, they want a clean screen for 2 weeks. And when the theater is not being sold out, and I did Quiet Place 2, we did Godzilla, currently we're showing Space Jam, and not once have we been completely sold out on the new releases. So we are now going backwards to more artsy films. So next week, I think we're playing I Carry You With Me, and we're doing different types of films just to see, what's going to work. Is the model being impacted because people can watch the movies at home? We're trying to figure that out. Because what I originally thought was going to happen, the people who love the movie theater were going to come back regardless of being able to watch it at home. That's not happening. And I think when we saw this recent weekend with Black Widow, there's something is not working for movie theaters. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in and say that I feel very fortunate that the Roxy's business model has never really relied on first run blockbusters, which is not really what we do. But we've dubbed this summer, the programming team, the leadership team has dubbed this summer the experiment summer, because we don't exactly know what's going to work and what's not going to work. So we're just trying stuff. And we found for us that like repertory programming has been doing very well.
Really?
Yeah, so it was fun when we reopened the Roxy, we did an audience choice poll. So we said, hey, community, what do you want? Movie do you want to see reopen the Roxy? And we had over 3,000 movie title submissions.
I voted.
I will say we maybe regretted it down the road, the power in the people's hands. But we narrowed those 3,000 down to 14, top 14. And then people voted on that 14, that 14 was so Bay Area, San Francisco, like it was a great 14. I was like, yes, this is awesome. Then they narrowed it down to 4 and I was like, uh-oh, what are we gonna end up showing? But we ended up opening the Roxy May 21st with Cinema Paradiso, which was the audience choice. But then the runner-up was Mulholland Drive. And we've been showing Mulholland Drive and selling out at reduced
Ever
capacity.
since?
This tonight is our 3rd screening of Mulholland Drive. And yeah,
Wow,
we're showing it on 35 millimeters, so that's a draw. But
Oh, okay.
we showed Moonstruck and that did really well. So yeah, rep programming, I think it's something with like name recognition, where it's
Yeah.
like people just know the movie, so you don't have to sell it like these new titles were. So that's been an interesting thing that we we're surprised by. And the other thing that we've been doing, which has been really fun, is doing live events, live performance. So our opening weekend, we had drag performance that was super fun before Eraserhead. And then we've had live bands come in and play. There's so few, venues, music venues and places, drag, whatever, clubs that are open. And so providing a venue for artists, and they're making money, they're getting paid, the audience is experiencing live art, and there's something just so special about the merger of those two. So as part of our experiment, we're like, what other crazy stuff can we do?
There you go.
How many of you are any of you bringing in filmmakers on Zoom thing for your audience to be able to interact with them, do Q&A? This is something couldn't be done before, but now film festivals are having more guests than they ever could afford to bring into town. And are you finding that that's popular, any of you?
Yeah, for sure. I have, since we opened, we've probably had 6 film festivals, smaller ones. And so we constantly have filmmakers here talking about their projects. We do a lot of Q&A. We do a lot with the directors come and talk about their films. We allow people to rent the space for private screenings. So we have a lot of premieres, but then we also have TV shows using the space too. Orange is the New Black was here, Billions, Ray Donovan, because we're in a studio neighborhood. So they use our space for work in progress. They use it for wrap parties. They use it just for all kinds of, to hold their extras. So for all kinds of stuff, they use our space. And that also has helped us financially to bring in additional revenue.
Okay. Young people. Now, art theaters as traditionally have had kind of an audience that's been getting older and older and older. And what are you doing to get young people engaged and coming to the theater, wanting to come to the movies?
I could tell you what we're doing. We installed an Xbox and a Nintendo, and we have video gaming in the theater for kids. And so they come in with their own controllers. They hook up to the system, and for $12, they can play for an hour.
On the big
so
screen?
That's, yeah, on the big screen. And so that has helped us to attract the young audience. So while they're waiting for the game, we're playing trailers, we're feeding them presentations of things we want them to know about. We also partnered up with the local police department, and they have a program for youth, and we host a free screening for them to get the kids into the theater. And so that has really helped us to stay in touch with the kids. We also have a program where Accessoride picks up seniors and brings them to the movie theater during the day. And so they get to watch movies that they would never otherwise, before COVID, they were watching, all kinds of like the Avengers, all kinds of crazy movies. They're my worst behaved crowd, though, I have to tell you. They sneak in food, they don't listen, they stand during the movie, they curse me out. They are the worst crowd. But I wanted them to have an opportunity to otherwise, be able to see movies, because they don't have Netflix. Some of them are in nursing facilities or senior homes where they don't really have access to new movies. So we play some old classics for them, but we also have them watch new movies. So that has allowed us to get the young people and also the seniors. And then we have a church that meets here early Sunday mornings. So that also has given us access to the faith-based community as well. But the teens are hard to reach. Thank God for video games.
Right. That brings up an interesting point, is how do we reach audiences today? Newspapers have lost most of their readership except for the New York Times, and yet movies almost never advertise even in the New York Times anymore. And so it's dependent, I suppose, mostly on a combination of social media and advertising on television, but not many people are watching broadcast TV either. But you all have figured out ways to communicate with your audiences. And how do you know whether they're reading what you put out there and how they're responding to that in terms of coming to the movies? Do you have a way of finding that out?
So we are the reason why I built the theater in this space, it was a warehouse. There was trucks parked in here and I built it from scratch. And the reason I chose this location was, one, because of the movie studios. But the second thing was, we're the only food place for 10 New York City blocks. So this is the only place you can get food. So if you're hungry and you're working from home and you need to grab something, we're it. And so that has allowed us, and we have TV screens in the cafe. So sometimes we'll put things in their bags with their lunch. Sometimes we'll put things on the screen, and we have a lot of foot traffic. There's a flea market around the corner. There's a drive-in around the corner. So we have used all of those ways to reach them. And then we give free coffee. So we get them in, and then, and on the coffee cup, we'll put a QR code for the movies, what's happening. So that's how we're reaching the audience. And then we have, obviously, the newsletter, we have social media. Although I have to tell you, I don't know that social media works that great for us. I think we're more like people swing by to see what's happening type of place. Yeah.
We use social media. Social media, I think, does work well for us. And we can tell, the real way we tell is when we post something, you can see those little spikes in tickets, even though it's 5 tickets or it's 8 tickets, but you'd still see it. And the same with, we have a news blast, an email blast that we send out weekly, or sometimes more than weekly now, so we talk about these days. And so you can just tell that you get little bumps each time you do that. We do know that that's working. And I think that the reach of other people, other people sharing things out, you send it to them, they send it to somebody else. There's sort of no way to track it. But that does seem to work. Coupled with our marquee is right there in the neighborhood. And I really feel like a lot of people, because we're a neighborhood theater, we're neighborhood theaters, people just stopping in and awkward to see what time movies are playing today. There's that too. There's a lot of just kind of everybody, from all the ways. But I think social media does work for us.
I don't know if any of you saw last Sunday's New York Times Arts and Leisure cover story by A.O. Scott about asking about the movies and whether they're back and how they're back. It's an interesting, at times very confusing. The comments are incredible. I'm just posting a link to that article for people to later take a look at. Do read the comments as well. You can, all the chat, at the end of it, you can go to the 3 little dots in the bottom corner, click on it, and it says copy, and you can save the whole chat with all of these links. But it's quite interesting. Now, food, traditionally it's been snack bars, and it's been candy and popcorn and ice cream and various things. And people have been experimenting, and depending on their ability to have a kitchen or expanded a bit, but now it seems that everybody can have beer and wine. And so I know that both the Roxy and the Balboa have that, but Stuart has this cafe with an incredible menu and a video of your chef talking about his fried chicken. I ought to get on a plane right now. And I will be in Brooklyn in late August, and I plan to come by and see it. But I just put a link to that menu, which is quite amazing. So I'm interested in what part you think that has played in your turnaround, because you were doing it before the pandemic, and how important that's going to be moving forward, the food and drink menus.
I think that's important. Once we added beer and wine to our menu, the revenue went up as well, because we have a lot of events and we were allowing people to bring in their own drinks. And it was a form of helping them not have to spend so much money with after parties and things like that. But now that we, and we're still affordable, like our beer is, $4, our wine is $5. But food has been very, very important. And all of our food is homemade. So we have empanadas, and then the chicken sandwich we got from, the guy was an anchor on channel 11, and something happened, so he had to leave. And he opened a restaurant called the Soundbite over by Broadway, where all the theaters are. And unfortunately, he went under during COVID. And I wanted to help him, and I didn't know what to do, because I, of course, had my own issues. And so I called him, and I love his chicken sandwich. I've been going there to eat a sandwich for years. And I said, could I license that sandwich from you? Just give me the recipe. I'll sell it. I'll put your face on it. We'll do a commercial. And it's one of our best sellers. People love the sandwich. And so I licensed it from him, and I've been selling it ever since. And so that also brought an additional audience that I didn't already have, sort of like the foodies. So they started to come. I think food is a big part now about, of the movie business. Most of the places now serve more than just popcorn and candy. We don't have a full kitchen, so most of our stuff is fried and sandwiches, things like that. But I think it's important. I don't think we could have survived without the cafe.
Is that Chef Julian? He's the
Yes.
So on that link for the menu, there's also that video of him talking about it, and it shows some of the theater too, for people to get a look at your theater.
Yeah, thank you.
Suki, one of the things that I know that you do at film festivals and as a manager of a theater is to have interaction with your audience. And moment to moment. I mean, you all do that, but Suki's really on the ground with that, because she's often at film festivals involved with audience flow and traffic and things like that. And what I'm interested from all of you, but Suki can start out, what kind of a tone do you want your staff to set for the audiences, for your patrons?
I mean, coming to the movies is such like an experience still. I don't think that's ever really changed. And I don't think that's going to change. So I think just, being welcoming and being knowledgeable about films. I don't know, because we are all small little theaters. I think we do attract a lot more of the film nerd group than maybe AMC or something. AMC is fine. I like AMC, IMAX, great, whatever. But I think we do. So we wind up definitely having more of a personal connection with them, because we wind up, people who work at these theaters usually are little film nerds themselves, and then we bring in film nerds. And so I think just like being able to share kind of have that shared experience of this is an experience, and then sorry and where am I going with this? Sorry. I'm not used to talking to people anymore. COVID still, so I think just being able to be welcoming and knowledgeable about films, and having movies that you don't necessarily see at the big screens is really helpful.
Does anybody introduce films on a regular basis and stand up in front of the audience and introduce films, give away prizes?
That's a great idea, though.
Yeah,
I did a bunch of that at the beginning. Probably the first 25 movies that we had, we wanted to give everyone a little out, and I had a little speech. Well, it was a different speech depending on which movie I was introducing, but I would also say, all right, you thought you felt okay about this, you bought a ticket, but now you're here. Or do you still feel okay? And if not, just go to the box office. We'll either give you a refund or a ticket to your show. Because if you got here and all of a sudden you thought, oh man, this was a mistake, I'm still feeling the COVID of this. And so and I think people really appreciated that. So hardly any, I think out of 25 movies or so, maybe 2 people got up and left. And so but I think people appreciate having that option. But yeah, giving away poster prizes and all of that trivia, we don't do it every show, but we do it a lot.
Yeah,
I gotta try that.
I think people love it. I used to, and when I was at the Balboa, when I would come down to introduce films, I'd say, I know if somebody comes down in front for the movie, you think that there's something wrong in cancellation. That's what happens at other theaters. But here, we just want to thank you for being here and that kind of a thing. And you always got applause. People loved it. And to give away not only posters and things, but your local merchants, your neighborhood merchants, they love the opportunity to give you something to give away because you're going to be promoting them in the theater. And if it's a restaurant, that means that before and after the movies, people might go there and do that. So I think that is really great. We're going to open up for Q&As. We'll keep talking until people post some, but for the general public there, we have a little Q&A box and we'll be monitoring that. And you can put in questions there and we'll ask that. And while I'm waiting for some of those to come in, I'd love to hear about any great moment of showmanship that you either have done in your theater or that you saw somebody else do that you just thought was fantastic. Because we are about showmanship. Oops, they're all thinking there.
Yeah.
Or a little light bulb up.
While you're thinking about that, I'll tell an inadvertent bit of showmanship. The first real theater that I had was the UC Theater in Berkeley. And we bought that theater. It was a 1917 theater. We opened it in April Fool's Day, foolishly. And about a month in, we were showing Singing in the Rain. And an unseasonal rainstorm broke out that day. And what we didn't know is that there were leaks in the roof of the theater.
Oh.
And the audience went crazy, running over to open their umbrellas and sit under the rain leak during Singing in the Rain.
That's some like William Castle production stuff right there.
Yeah, but we love doing
Yeah,
William
right?
Castle films too. I wish I could set the Tingler up in the theater.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Anybody have any other comments? And we don't have any questions yet, so folks, start thinking. Well, I do see that Lincoln Spector, who has a wonderful blog, asked Adam in the chat about VHS because you do a VHS occasionally, and and the dog wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I know. I knew it would happen.
So
to answer, I'm glad we get a chance to actually talk about that. So we do a monthly program called Rewind Wednesday that's movies shown on VHS. It's curated.
The dog.
Sorry, we got a lot going on here. It's curated by my general manager, Chloe, and she chooses the movies, and she is in her early 30s. I would say most of the crowd that comes is late 20s to mid 30s, and there are people that are really, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's kind of great. It's a super fun event, and we sell cross stitches in the lobby, and I mean it's not for people that aren't nostalgic for VHS, but those that are, it's amazing. It's awesome.
That sounds so cool.
It is really fun.
And you did that skateboard, a skateboard show recently where you mixed videos and a film on the big screen. How did you?
Yep.
What did you do there?
We showed The Search for Animal Chin, which is kind of an early. It was supposedly it's the first skateboard movie that has a plot, and it's got the Bones Brigade, which is Tony Hawk and Tommy Guerrero, and Tom, and so we showed skate videos in the lobby that were from Gary's son, actually his VHS collection, and that he had given me, and then there's a guy in the movie who gives out maps to skaters' homes underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. It's kind of a weird moment. and he was there DJing, and host Alyssa Steamer had made maps to like current skaters' homes, and we kind of gave all those out, and it was, you know, just kind of a fun, silly event.
I love that.
It was great. It was fun.
Love that.
And I was surprised how many 50-year-old skateboarders brought their kids. And this movie meant so much to me. You know, when I was 12, or 14, I watched this movie, and I want my kid to see it too. Kind of great.
Mateus asks, is anyone booking shorts with features as an added draw? What's old is new again type of concept, vintage or new cartoons? We always run a cartoon with vintage features at the Fox California at Stockton once a month. And with digital now, it's so much easier to be able to program shorts because you don't have to worry about getting a print and hooking it in and all that. But also at the same time, I know the public's not used to it. So sometimes they might say, what's this? I came to see Black Widow. Why are you showing this cartoon? But I think that it might be a real opportunity, both with vintage shorts as well as new films by local filmmakers, to be able to get those films in front of audiences and expose them to the wondrous world of shorts.
Yeah, I completely agree. Maybe because I make short films, but we are showing Can You Bring It, Bill T. Jones on Sunday, and we do have a local short dance film that is so fantastic. And we rely on a lot of community partnerships. So in this case, we're partnering with Detour Dance, who's the dance company that made the short film. But yeah, when thinking about like reaching our audience and creating new audiences, it's those community partnerships that are so fantastic and important to us. And I think having short films before features really is something we're excited to experiment more with.
Questions asked from David Drazen and Carol Seymour, one of them, both of them. Have you considered getting in touch with private film collectors in your area and show a print of a silent movie with live accompaniment? It's David asked that question. I was just going to ask about any of your experiences with silent films and live music. So that's perfect timing, David. Thank you.
We've done a little bit of that over the years, and we love to do, and though it's not silent films, there's a local musician named Mark Capel that I'm sure Lex has worked with as well, and he's pretty incredible. A keyboardist, but a composer as well. And he's done scores to surf movies. We did a series of Bruce Conner, who was a local San Francisco artist, Bruce Conner short films with him doing a musical ensemble accompaniment. And then coming up in this fall, we're gonna do the experimental films of Harry Smith, right? Who's famous for archiving the folk music of the 20s and 30s. And but he also made experimental films in the 60s. And so we'll do the same thing with Mark Capel and the Red Room Orchestra playing along to that. It's great. And Mark is great because it's so much work on his part to make the arrangements, and everybody learns it and rehearse and all that for just one show. It's pretty incredible, or maybe two if we can eke it out. But yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do is live music accompaniment to a movie.
And I know there have been some experiments with DJs doing contemporary music to old classic silent films. We're lucky in San Francisco that we have this great silent film festival that brings in musicians and orchestras from all over the world, and maybe that just saturates people from doing it, because the Balboa, we used to do them more regularly, but it was a lot of work. There's no question about it. Lex, you've shown some silent films at the Roxy.
Yeah, and we're a big fan of celluloid. There's a great private collector who has a ton of 16 millimeter that we try to do in our little Roxy, which is 47 seats, which is just perfect for 16 millimeter. We don't have a ton of space. Our building is over 100 years old, and so the live music component is always challenging just because there's not a ton of room to set up musicians. So I'm always jealous about Balboa for that. But for us, the commitment to celluloid is so important, and we are teaming up with Canyon Cinema for a kind of a monthly screening series, because there's such a treasure trove of amazing experimental Bay Area filmmakers on film. So yeah, that's a program I'm really looking forward to for the end of fall.
Yeah, to go off what Gary was saying, Elmwood doesn't really do any silent, but I am one of the house managers at the San Francisco Silent Film Festival. And we basically, I don't know who's familiar with it, but we take over the Castro Theater. We have our big festival that we do usually sometime in May, and it's usually like a Thursday night, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we have like a day of silence, which is the first Saturday of December. And it's an amazing festival because we're in such a big old historic theater. I think the Castro has like 1,500 seats or something. And we bring in, every screening has a different, has a change in musical accompaniment. So we have Stephen Horn and Donald Sosin, who are kind of specialists as far as piano style silent music goes. Then we bring in the Alloy Orchestra, which is super experimental. I forget what movie we had that we screened, and we had DJ Spooky something. What?
He did Birth of a Nation.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And he was really cool. We hadn't had him before. If we bring in, I mean, the one thing about silent film, which is great, is like you can have world cinema, and it's easily accessible because there's not talking. So it's all, you just change out the title cards kind of thing. So when we do bring in world cinema, we brought in like musicians from India to accompany Indian films. It's a whole thing, and it's really amazing being able to see it at the Castro, just like in its glory, because a lot of these films have been lost forever. You know, people who are little film hoarders, eventually their collections wind up coming out, and we're able to like restore them. We work with the BFI and Lobster Films and all of them, and we do in-house preservation ourselves, and we have these world premieres that, you know, these movies haven't been seen for 100 years, and now we've been able to piece them together because there's weird chunks from, we find them in Sweden, and then we find the ones in France, and we merge them together and make one cohesive film, and it's really quite an experience. So if anyone is able to go to the San Francisco Silent Film Festival, it's
then that's all done by Anita Manga and Stacy Wisnia, right? They coordinate it, they bring in musicians and all that. And then
it's great. It's
you have
such
the pleasure of being able to help make it all physically happen on the floor.
Yeah, it's really fun. That's definitely my favorite film festival, and I look forward to it every year. And I'm sad it didn't happen last year, obviously, but we're gearing up. We should be having something again, I think next May. And I think there might be something like a one-day thing later this year, but I don't know if that's been announced yet.
There's a question about virtual cinema and whether you feel virtual cinema has been a good thing or a bad thing beyond the keeping in touch with your audiences. I mean, my observation is that most of the theaters doing virtual cinema were just putting out dozens of films. It seemed they weren't always curating. I know that both Adam and Lex were curating. They were doing the first run virtual cinema, but also putting in special things that were specific to their audience, or sending people to a thing and then having a conversation, an online conversation afterwards. Any thoughts about that? And as we move forward, where virtual cinema fits into our world?
I know with the Elmwood, we were sending out a newsletter every week, and it would have stuff that you could, movies that we liked ourselves, and it was a mix of ones that you could purchase through our website, but also movies that we liked that were streaming on Netflix. We were just sending out like recommendations. I don't know monetarily if that helped a lot. I'm not in the finances area, but I mean, I think I like the fact that we were doing ways to help the theater, but also like, we also like these other movies and they're somewhere else. So if you guys are bored and you want stuff and you want to know what we're thinking, this is what we like. And it was usually like older movies, but it was a lot of independent and world cinema, which is awesome.
I would say with the virtual cinema, the value was in the connection with everybody and being able to send out newsletters and social media and connect with your customers and your community. Financially, it was very little. We did a thing for phase one of the pandemic, like Tiger King phase, when we were doing a Saturday night event where we would just pick a movie that was available just generally online. And not that you would get through us, but then we would all pick a time. So let's all press play at 7 o'clock. And then we would have a chat room going. So either I would moderate it or one of my staff or friends who was into that particular movie would moderate it. And then you would just have kind of an old school chat room, sort of like the chat that's happening on the side of our Zoom right now. But, just people just commenting, oh, look at those shoes. That's crazy, telling jokes. and it was really fun, especially at the beginning time when we were all really sequestered. And then as it moved forward, we started doing some social justice movies, and those were nice learning experiences too for everybody. And I think I hosted a lot of those and I loved them. I thought that was a great thing to do, but no financial gain.
Yeah.
I want to be interesting to know if you could put chats up on the screen before movie started. I wouldn't want it on the screen in the theater during the movie, but beforehand, and let the audience kind of, meet each other up on the screen and make jokes and talk about why they came to the movie. That would be kind of an interesting experiment to play with. Lincoln Spector would like to ask a question. I think he's going to ask it live. Raina's going to set that up. There he goes. Hey, Lincoln. Okay, Lincoln has to be unmuted.
Okay. I asked him to unmute, so.
Lincoln, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, it's the same question that I asked by chat a few minutes ago about virtual cinema, so it's all taken care of.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Well, can I jump in and just say two things about virtual cinema? I don't know if it's two things, but yes, was not financially lucrative by any means. But one thing that our virtual cinema had that we don't do for our physical cinema is people could make a donation, and still can. We still very much have our virtual cinema up. People can make a donation when they purchase a ticket. And that has just been awesome. Like just to be able to grow, I mean, people who donate $5, $10, but who have never donated to the Roxy before. So like growing our community in that way has been really fantastic. And then, we plan on continuing our virtual cinema. We're at one point opening about 4 or 5 titles a week. Now we're opening maybe 1 or 2, just because there's so much already going on. And we've definitely seen a decline in viewership, especially in the last couple of months. There's a steady decline. But what's so exciting about virtual cinema to me is that we can take bigger risks on titles that we know wouldn't even bring in 20 people to the Little Roxy because our overhead is less. And so we're able to show films from like Art Matin films, films about African diaspora, films that we just, or screen movies that we couldn't probably book at the actual physical Roxy, and leave them on screen for longer because it's not in a physical space. And so I think that gives us the opportunity to tell more stories through the Roxy, and have people access those films from across the country. And to me, that's really exciting. So as long as distributors continue, and every distributor is approaching virtual cinema differently, because there isn't a lot of money in it. But as long as there continues to be some kind of virtual distribution pipeline, we'll always kind of consider virtual cinema as our third screen.
It sort of makes it's like creates a multiplex for you, because you could even open a film in the theater and play it for however long it's got an audience, and then move it into the virtual screen and because does it cost you anything to have something available on virtually? Does it cost you anything up front?
No, exactly. Yeah, there's no minimum up front. And I very much like the hybrid model of having something in our virtual cinema for people who aren't comfortable coming back to the cinemas yet, especially as things ebb and flow with spikes. And so, yeah, we often will have 1 or 2 physical in-person screenings of something that we're showing virtually. because it gives the film a better chance as well. And we're already doing the promo. So.
And what about, let's say that you open a film, a new film by a filmmaker, emerging filmmaker, but there's somebody who's made some other films. You open it in the theater, and I guess you could do a retrospective of their work virtually so that people could then know more about that filmmaker's work, and you're just helping lead them to that experience.
Yeah, we also have a virtual cinema called Stuart Cinema on Demand, and it hasn't really been lucrative, but I opened it with the idea that at some point I could take independent films and put them on there and offer some type of distribution to independent filmmakers, whether it be from the film festivals or from other areas. So I do plan to grow the audience for that, but I wanted filmmakers to already have a platform that was functioning and that had studio movies on it to help attract, because that's one of the issues, right, with some of these virtual cinemas is that, you know, they don't have movies that people really recognize, and that name recognition matters, and it's going to help the filmmakers. So that was sort of my idea in investing, because, you know, for all of us who set this up, it was an initial investment. But people do watch it, just not as much as I would like. And now that the movie theater's open, those numbers, you know, like Lex said, are even lower.
Yeah. Now, there's some governmental help to help theaters out. SVOG program. Could anybody want to talk about a little bit about that? Did you apply for it? Have you been awarded it yet? How, for the general public who's watching this, they don't know anything about that, but there is this support. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
So we applied and were approved back in probably April, but we still haven't seen any money because of all the red tape and the delays and all these issues. And every week they ask me for something new, but the money is there. I know that there are other movie theaters that have received it, but it's a mission to say the least. But listen, we're grateful for it. I think there's going to be a lot of issues when the time runs out and we all have to account for how that money was spent. There are a lot of restrictions on it, and that keeps changing every day. You know, there's talk about we could pay ourselves back for the money that we invested during COVID to keep our businesses running. And then there was other talk about how only a percentage of it, some of it, all of it. So things are constantly changing. So that money definitely has to be accounted for and kept separately. And for those of us who've been told we're getting the money, we're still waiting.
Lex, were you shaking your head? You've probably been involved in that whole process.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I mean, like, I have gray hairs that I didn't. I mean, really, from not just the SVOG, but from the beginning of the first, you know, Paycheck Protection Program, where we were all scrambling. I liken it to Hunger Games. Yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced more work stress in my life than dealing with these government programs. And again, yes, so happy to have resources and, you know, support coming for us, but the portals just like they break and like you can't go. I mean, it's just been truly maddening, the whole entire process. And Emelyn, we were in a very similar position, that we were said that we had the award, and I just kept every day checking the account, nothing and nothing and I mean, like, my heart goes out to you. I actually texted my buddy Adam and I was like, help, like, what do we do? So a few people I reached out to finally must have had a direct line to the SBA, because then something moved forward. So let's connect after, because I can maybe put you in touch with them. But
excellent.
Well, I know the National Association of Theater Owners and the Art House Convergence are two trade organizations that have been very helpful as everything that I see in helping you get through that process. And if any of the public's interested, the National Association of Theater Owners, Art House Convergence websites, or anybody can go visit them. And if you're curious to see what these people have to go through, it's kind of informative.
Yeah,
I would say NATO, the National Association of Theater Owners, has been incredible.
Yes. Yes.
You know, sometimes you don't realize how great some organization is until the chips are down. But I mean, they have been unbelievable. You know,
Yeah.
and I think we've all gone through, our theaters went through it with the PPP, and Lex and I have been in contact a lot about this, where it just through in that same way, weeks and weeks later. And then Lex just went through it with the SVOG. So it's nice that these organizations exist, and they really do. In the end, when you get the money, it really does help. But boy,
Yeah.
there's some sleepless nights on the way, you know?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for them, because they you know, NATO has been amazing. I mean, they forced me to do a lot of lobbying. I actually went to DC and had to lobby, and Chuck Schumer's from New York. So I did a lot of lobbying and talking to his department, and then with the mayor. And at first I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk to the politicians, but they trained me, and Esther would send me, this is the script. This is what you're going to say. Because, you know, you get in front of these politicians and you know why you're doing what you're doing, but you got to have these key words that sort of ring true with them, and they're, you know, and they're following. But NATO has been amazing. The Art House Convergence. I am so grateful to those organizations. And so I encourage everyone, when they call and ask you to do something, do it. Because I know I was like, I don't want to do that.
And I put links for both organizations in the chat. Now, Emelyn, I know you have to leave.
Yes.
Got a busy day today. Thank you so much for coming in from the East Coast. I look forward to meeting you.
Yes. I hope to see you guys. Is anybody going to Cinemacon?
No, that's the Theater Owners Association convention that's coming right up. But,
yeah.
I don't think any of us are going to it. I'm not quite ready to be in Vegas yet.
Yeah.
But I'm coming to see you, Emelyn. I'm going to come when I'm in Brooklyn. I'm
yes,
going to visit the
yes.
theater.
I'm coming to
Please
you
come
in
visit.
September, so I'm gonna
Yes.
come in September.
Oh my
Good
God,
for you.
definitely email me, come visit. I'd love to see you guys
Yeah,
in person. And thank
I'm
you.
really looking forward to seeing
Yes.
it.
And I feel better knowing I've got you guys out there in the
Yay.
same struggle.
Same.
Sometimes you feel like you're on an island by yourself. So it's good to know you guys are out there and that you get it, you understand. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay,
I don't
bye-bye.
see any more questions being asked, but does anybody have any closing comments or special stories or anything they'd like to leave our viewers with, or any of us with?
I would just like to say thanks. It is not overstating it to say that without the community, the cinematic and the physical neighborhood community, I don't think our little theaters would have made it. I really don't.
No, definitely not.
It was tricky. The beginning of 2020 just wasn't a good time for movies anyway. You know, it was like the Oscar race wasn't a particularly contested race. And there was no real reason other than Parasite. There wasn't too many movies to go see. And before COVID hit, it was really kind of, attendance was sort of declining because of the specter of COVID. The one thing people did know is don't go to the theater, right? That was sort of the only thing that was there. And so we went into this in pretty bad shape. And it's you know, now in hindsight, it feels like, oh, okay, cool, we made it. But when I really think about it, it was touch and go, and it was the largesse of the neighborhood that saved the day. And so thank you, everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think what I have to say is that everybody out there, go back to the theaters, go to the movies. It's great. I have to admit that with some hesitation, I have gone to 3 films at the Grand Lake Theater here in Oakland, near where I live. And it's just wonderful. It is so different. I mean, In the Heights, in a theater versus watching it on HBO Max was a completely different kind of an experience. Black Widow, I went to see it in the theater. I wasn't a fan of the film, so that's different, but I can't imagine watching it on my television, no matter how big the screen is for it. So we thank everybody. Unless there's anybody has any last questions or comments. I did put those links that I mentioned in there. You can copy the chat if you want to capture a bunch of links by going to the bottom, 3 little dots, click, it says save chat. It'll save it to your desktop. Go back to any of those links that you want. My understanding, Raina, you can confirm this, that this will be available on the Niles Movie Museum website for people to watch, tell your friends to watch if they want. Is that correct, Rena?
That is right. Yes.
Okay. When will it be up?
In just a matter of a couple days.
Okay, terrific. So thank you, everybody. We will see you at the movies.
Hey, bye.